So today's quick tutorial is to make sugar cookies. This recipe is really simple and hopefully just uses things that you've already got lying around in your cupboard. So there are 5 main ingredients. I'm going to go through all of that in a second. But essentially we're going to make the dough, we're going to cook it, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to decorate mine, but you can do pretty much anything with yours. I'm also going to show you how to make a really simple cookie cutter at home, because perhaps a lot of you are thinking there's no point making cookies if I haven't got any cutters, but you can literally make them at home and make any kind of shape that you can think of. I'm going to show you how to do that as well. Okay, let's get started. Okay guys, so let's start with the dough for the cookies first. So like I said, it's really straightforward, 5 ingredients. So again, in my mixing bowl, I've already got 275 grams of plain flour. You don't need to use self-raising for this recipe. And I've got 100 grams of caster sugar. Now to that, I'm just going to add 100 grams of unsalted butter. That's already been melted down to sort of room temperature so that it's liquid. So again, you can do that by putting it in the microwave and just melting it down quickly. So I'm going to add that in. And then I'm going to add 1 medium egg. Put that straight in. We're going to mix it all up anyway, so that you don't have to worry about mixing it beforehand. And then I'm just going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. You can add whatever flavouring you want, or you don't have to add any flavouring at all if you don't want to. Okay, and that is literally it. So it's really simple. So 275 of plain flour, 100 grams of caster sugar, 100 grams of unsalted butter melted down, 1 egg and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. That's it. So I'm going to put it in here and bring it all together, and then we can start shaping it. Right, as you can hear, my mixer's going a bit mad there because the dough's come together. If at this point, so I've been mixing for about 2 minutes, if at this point you find that your mixture is actually not like this and it's a bit too crumbly, then keep it in the bowl and add in about half an egg, so add in another half an egg. Or a full egg if it's really crumbly, so that would be sort of 1.5 to 2 eggs in total. Mine's come out quite nice and soft, so I'm just going to bring it together. And there is your biscuit dough, it's done. So the next thing is to shape it. Because you'll notice when you're kind of holding it that it's really soft and quite buttery, it's almost impossible to roll it out and shape it and then pick the biscuits up. So a good tip is that we roll it out completely onto a sheet of baking paper and we cut our shapes on that baking sheet and then peel away the excess and put that straight into the oven. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to show you how to do that now. Right, so here is my sheet of baking paper, which I've cut down to the size of my baking tray, so that's quite important. Cut it down before you start doing anything so that when you're finished you can just slide it onto your baking tray and put your cookies in the oven. So this is my dough. I'm just going to try and roll it out nice and evenly on the baking paper. So just make it a slightly longer shape and go straight onto here. And I've got my rolling pin. Now this can get a bit fiddly, but essentially you just want to roll out as far as you can. And you want the dough to get to about, I'd say, a pound coin in thickness. Okay, so I'm happy with that now. It's a nice flat piece of dough, about a pound in thickness. And now I'm going to show you how to make some cookie cutters. If you've got cutters already, that's great. You can just start using them and then peel away the excess bits of dough. But I'm going to show you how to make some because I also want to make some custard ones. So we're going to do that now. Right, so this is a clever little trick. My hands are a bit greasy, one sec. This is a clever little trick using a laptop and some paper and a pencil and some scissors. So I want to make the numbers 1 and 2 and a little flower shape. So what I've done is basically just Google stencils. So I've Googled number stencils and these things have come up, if you can see them, which are basically just the number 1 and 2, and I've also got a little flower there. So I'm going to use these as my cutters, but in order to get them onto the batter, what I'm going to do is use a piece of paper, put it up against my laptop laptop and then start to trace it. So I'm essentially using my laptop as a light box. So I'm going to trace the 1, trace the 2, and then trace the flour, and then put them onto the dough. Okay, so now I've got my shapes. I've got my 1, my 2, and my flour. I'm going to cut them out. Okay, so now that's done. Mine are quite big, you don't have to go so big. And like I said before, you can Google literally anything and cut out the shape of anything you want to make. But what I'm going to do now is transfer this onto my baking tray before I start to cut the shapes, just so it's a little bit easier to do. So I'm going to go and get my tray. Okay, cool. So now my dough is on my tray, on the baking paper. I can start cutting my shapes out. So I'm literally now just going to place these on top of the dough and then cut around them. So you've got enough space to do a few, and then with the leftover dough you can kind of mould those with your hands or cut another few shapes on the sides. Okay, that's done. So I'm going to pop these in the oven at 170 for about 8 to 10 minutes. You don't want them to get too brown, because although they'll be soft when you take them out of the oven, when you cool them down, they'll get really, really hard. So don't overcook them. So 8 to 10 minutes at 170. Right, so my biscuits are now out of the oven, and I just wanted to quickly show you what I've ended up with. So they look quite pale in colour, but don't worry about that because they've dried nice and hard, so they'll hold your decorations nicely. I am going to decorate mine using royal icing, which is essentially made from 500 grams of icing sugar mixed in with the egg whites from 1 egg, and then whip that up. And if you feel like it's still too dry, just keep adding water, I would say a teaspoon at a time, until you get the kind of consistency that you want. You can use any kind of consistency depending on what decorations you're doing. I'm going to flood mine with icing, so I've made it fairly thick so it doesn't run off everywhere. So just to show you, that's the sort of consistency I've got. You can see it's hanging off the mixer, but it's not really runny. So you can add colouring to that, or flavouring, or whatever you like. So what I'm going to do is record my decorating from slightly different angles so that you can see in more detail what I'm doing, and hopefully you'll like the end product. Yeah, 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 yeah.